Okay, welcome back to Buchanan Braden. Our guest on the live line right now is a Redskin fan who dates back to the days of Sammy Ball and Bullet Bill Dudley and the great Gene Brito in the 50s, right up on through Sonny Jurgensen and Larry Brown. President Nixon, how are you?
Just fine, Pat.
Good. Tom Braden's here with me. Mr. President, the talk of Washington this weekend is all about Dallas and the Redskins. A tremendous emotional fever. Who do you like in the game?
Well, emotionally, I, of course, as you know, have always been a Redskins fan, going back to my days when I was in the House and Senate and used to see a lot of games. However, I have a great admiration for Tom Landry, and so consequently, I'm not going to pick between the two. However, in terms of who will win, I think it's going to be first a high-scoring game, and second, because of the home field, I believe the Redskins may well win in the last couple of minutes with a field goal by Mosley. I would also think, too, that Seisman will have a much better day this time than he did before when he was intercepted several times, particularly because of what Dallas did against Green Bay, where Green Bay passed for over 300 yards against them. So all in all, I look for very good. One thing, if for Redskins fans, I would urge that they all pray for rain or snow.
Well, we're supposed to have lousy weather we hear right now, Mr. President.
If it's rain or snow, Pat, I think Riggins is a better mudder than Dorsett, the great Dallas runner. Dorsett has to cut, he's got to move fast, and Riggins can run at anything.
Let me ask you about this factor, Mr. President. The Redskins' tremendous emotion, youth, energy, but inexperience. Dallas has been in, I guess, every playoff since we can remember, so they come up here, they don't get rattled in the big championship game like this. Do you think that's going to have an impact? You watch both of them on TV, I'm sure.
I'm going to watch it. I would say that it could have an impact, although this Redskin team has come from nowhere and is, as we know, lost only one game, the best record in the NFC. So consequently, I think they're growing up now. I doubt if they're going to get rattled. The only thing I would say is this. The fellow they got to watch out for in the Dallas secondary is that Everson Walls. And in the early part of the game, any kind of a break could be disastrous for the Redskins. And one other thing I'd say, Pat, watch out for a trick play from Landry. He's a genius. And I'm not to say that the Washington coach is not also very good, but Landry always pulls something out of a hat.
Is it true, Mr. President, that you once pulled something out of a hat for the Washington team?
Well, I tried to, but it didn't work.
Was that the play you sent in to Coach Allen that they used against the 49ers?
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, I probably sent in lots of plays, and the ones that worked I took credit for, and the ones that didn't, of course, I got blamed for in any event. But in any event, I used to think during those days that Redskins should use screen passes more. And I used to suggest that, and on occasion they used them, and they worked.
President Nixon, how do you compare the Redskin team that you see on television now, Theismann and Riggins, who's a tremendous, as you say, a good mudder, with the teams that you remember from the 50s and from 1972, I guess it is the Super Bowl team?
Let's go back. If you go back to the 50s, you know, you had Sammy Ball, and that was about it. But he was great. He could do it all. Kick and pass and run and so forth and so on. When you come down to the Super Bowl team, I would say that it was a shade better than this team on defense. Allen was a defensive genius, and the special teams were outstanding as well. And had Larry Brown not been playing hurt, I believe that the Redskins would have won the Super Bowl against Miami. Now, looking, however, at this team, I would say it is more explosive, more rounded than any other Redskin team we've seen for years. Seisman is a great passer. He's got some fine receivers. And in Riggins, they've got a superb runner. They have a very good offensive line. I guess they call them the Hogs. The only thing why I think the Redskins could be suspect would be in the defensive secondary. And there they have some good men, but they don't have quite the experience, I think, that the Dallas people have.
But do you think, Mr. President, that if the Redskins commit one or two turnovers...
Early in the game, it'll be very, very difficult. Because that's where Dallas can commit turnovers, they can get behind, and they'll still come back. Dallas is never going to rattle.
Mr. President...
But I would say this, I do not think that either team is going to run away from the other. I think it's going to be a very
President Nixon, are you aware that today is the 30th anniversary of your inauguration as Vice President?
Oh, yes, and
Did you remember that when you woke up this morning?
Well, no, I didn't. As a matter of fact, I didn't know it, didn't remember it till I looked at the calendar, and saw what my schedule was, and then I realized it was as a matter of fact, it's, as you know, Tom, also the anniversary of inauguration for president in 1969, and for the second term in 1972.
Can we go back?
All that I remember about the days is they were all very cold.
Can I go back in history a little bit? What was the first Redskin game you saw? Because one of the sports writers told me, I was just telling Pat, that you were the first president to attend a game while in office.
It's Maurice Siegel. You might know him, Mr. President.
Oh, yeah. Well, the first game that I saw, well, let me say this. I saw a Redskin game when I was in the Congress. And I'll tell you an interesting thing, which I think our listeners would be interested in. I used to sit by George Marshall, the owner of the Redskins.
Right.
And his wife, Corinne Griffith, wrote the Redskin fight song. And I would sit there, and I remember they had a big mink, in those cold days, mink coats and wraps and robes and so forth in the box. We were the only people there that were cool with. But I remember in that early period, it was an all-white team. And George Marshall was the last of the coaches ever to go to a black team. And I remember sitting there one time with George Marshall, and they were playing the Cleveland Browns. And the great Cleveland fullback, Marion Motley, was running through them over and over again. And I turned to George, I said, George, if you want to win, you got to break this barrier. And you've got to get some black players. And you recall shortly afterwards, whatever prejudices he had as being from West Virginia, I guess, were changed, and he brought in some splendid players.
Mr. President, you're up there in New York, so the team I guess you follow up there, the New York Jets, they're in the playoff in the AFC with Miami, right?
Yes.
How do you think those AFC clubs stack up against the Redskins in Dallas?
Normally the AFC, until last year when the 49ers, as you know, beat Cincinnati in the Super Bowl, I would say the AFC, I think, would have an edge because they seem to have more offense and so forth. But both Dallas and Washington are great offensive teams. The Jets are, Miami is, and incidentally, looking at Miami, there also you have a superb coach. Not to knock Michaels, who has also done a fine job. I look for that also to be a tight game, and I wouldn't call it either way. I'd say I wouldn't give any points at all if I were betting the game.
Okay, President Nixon, you want to say hello to Joe Gibbs? I think we got the coach of the Washington Redskins on the other line before you go.
Sure.
Joe, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Oh, I just want to congratulate you. I've seen the playoff games, and if a team plays as it did last week, of course, with no mistakes against Minnesota and so forth, it's going to be, I think, a great day. I think you may have heard my prediction. I would pick with the home field advantage. I just have a hunch, lacking a mistake early in the game. I have a hunch the Redskins in the last 2 minutes in a high-scoring game with the Mosley field goal.
Hey, well, that's tremendous. I just want you to know that we sure appreciate you being a Redskin fan, and
yes,
we're all excited.
Yes, sir, and I want to congratulate you for, Coach of the Year, coming from San Diego, our old friends out there, and then bringing that great offense. As you know, Allen was a defensive genius, and I think you're an offensive genius. We'll see what happens.
Well, I don't know about that. I would like to say that, I don't know whether you know or not, but we're from the same hometown there, Whittier. I spent a lot of time in Whittier.
Is that right?
Yeah, I grew up right down in South Whittier, as a matter of fact.
Is that right? Well, that's very good. Very near Santa Fe Springs and all those places, yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, I just want to say to you that we appreciate you pulling for us, and we're going to do the best we can. I think it'll be a great game. It's got all the ingredients, everything.
Incidentally, a lot of people are not aware, Coach, that, as you know, that George Allen coached at Whittier.
Yes, he did.
And the San Diego coach coached there, too.
Yes, Don Coryell did.
Followed George. They both got their start there.
Yes, they did.
So, there was a fellow named Richard Nixon that played halfback out there, I think, wasn't he?
All these Whittier people successful, you're going to win, I would say.
Well, I certainly appreciate the call.
All right, and
thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Joe Gibbs, coach of the Washington Redskins. That was President Richard Nixon talking with Tom Braden and Pat Buchanan and Coach Joe Gibbs of the Redskins. And you heard Richard Nixon say that his feeling was if it's a bad day, the Redskins would probably, Riggins being the stronger runner than Dorsett in the mud if it's bad weather. and his feeling that maybe at the end he feels the Redskins might be able to pull this thing out in the last 2 minutes.
With a Mosley field goal.
With a Mosley field goal. I hope they don't make us wait to 2 minutes to the end. Tom Braden and I'll be right back.